I always believed my life would be painfully ordinary, like those plain buns everyone buys at the corner bakery only because they're cheap, not because they want them. But everything changed the morning I managed to do something so spectacularly embarrassing that the universe must have written it in bold calligraphy. And that, dear listener, is precisely how I ended up with my face pressed against the thighs of a girl I'd never met. Yes, thighs. Soft ones. Warm ones. I still haven't emotionally recovered. It started with me sprinting through the courtyard of Cherry Street High, clutching a half-eaten rice ball that was losing structural integrity by the second. I'd overslept again, this time because I binge-watched a 20-episode drama about immortal sword maidens. I had promised myself just one more episode, which, as everyone knows, is the most shameless lie humanity has invented. As I ran, the rice ball exploded like a culinary grenade, scattering grains behind me like I was feeding invisible pigeons. Naturally, the universe wasn't satisfied with humiliating me once. Oh no. My shoelace betrayed me halfway across the courtyard. I stepped on it, shrieked like a startled squirrel, lost my balance, and went flying forward with all the grace of a malfunctioning scarecrow. I braced for the unforgiving slap of concrete, but instead, thwomp, I landed on something soft, something warm, something that squeaked. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in the lap of a girl with glossy black hair, delicate glasses, and the calm aura of someone who meditates at sunrise. She blinked down at me, her expression perfectly composed despite the fact that a random disaster girl had just fallen into her lap like a returning boomerang. "Are you comfortable?" she asked. No one has ever recovered from embarrassment the way I attempted to in that moment. I jerked upright so fast my soul lagged behind by 3 seconds. So sorry, I wasn't. This is my shoe gravity rice ball. Help." Full sentences had abandoned me like traitors. The girl simply tilted her head like an amused cat. She didn't look annoyed. She didn't even look surprised. That was somehow worse. She stood, dusting off her skirt, then offered me a hand. "I'm May," she said gently. "Are you hurt?" Her voice was soft enough to be mistaken for silk. I grabbed her hand, which was warm and steady, nothing like my own trembling disaster fingers. "I'm Lynn," I squeaked. "I'm mostly okay. My dignity might be broken though." May smiled. Actually smiled at me, not the polite kind but the kind that made tiny dimples appear at the corner of her mouth. "Dignity is overrated," she said. I almost proposed marriage on the spot. Instead, I muttered something incoherent, hoping it sounded like a thank you and not like a dying frog. She glanced at my exploded rice ball and, without missing a beat, pulled a neatly wrapped bun from her bag. "Here," she said. "You look like you skipped breakfast." I stared at her. Beautiful girl. Perfect lap. Emergency bun supplies. Was she an angel? A wandering cultivator? A bakery deity in disguise? I accepted the bun with both hands like it was a sacred artifact. "Are you always this prepared?" I asked. She nodded. "It's important to take care of yourself. And sometimes other people." I wanted to melt into a puddle right there. We walked toward the school building together, May with her serene elegance and me with my chaotic rice-sprinkled aura. People stared. I wasn't sure if they were looking at her beauty or my wet cat energy, but probably both. Just when I thought I had regained some semblance of composure, May said, "If you keep skipping breakfast, you're going to faint one day. I'll start bringing extras." My heart made a noise similar to a collapsing shelf. "No." I blurted. "I mean yes, but no, but yes. But you don't have to." I waved my arms like a malfunctioning windmill. May giggled. Giggled. It was the kind of sound that makes flowers bloom and birds sing and idiots like me forget how to breathe. As we reached the classroom door, she glanced at me sideways. "By the way, your shoelace is still untied." I looked down and indeed the traitor lace mocked me. I bent to tie it, but before I could, May crouched and tied it herself, deft, gentle fingers brushing my ankle. I almost ascended into the heavens right then and there. When she stood, she said simply, "See you later, Lynn." As she walked away, my heart pounded between awe, panic, and something warm I didn't want to name yet. I leaned against the doorframe to catch my breath. That was the day I realized 2 things. 1. My life was not going to be ordinary anymore. 2. I had just met someone who could ruin me emotionally in the sweetest possible way. And as it turns out, that was only the beginning. I wish I could say I stopped embarrassing myself after that fateful lap landing incident, but fate is cruel and has a twisted sense of humor. The next day I marched into school determined to behave like a normal human being. No falling, no screaming, no collapsing into random girls' laps. But the moment I saw May sitting under the old ginkgo tree, reading with sunlight falling on her hair like she was some serene shrine goddess, all the normality in my body packed its bags and left. I tried to walk past her casually, pretending I didn't notice her. But my brain was too busy screaming, "Don't stare. Walk straight. Be cool." So naturally I tripped on absolutely nothing. Not a pebble, not a stick, not a rogue spirit, just pure air. My soul left my body before I hit the ground, but before I could complete my dramatic swan dive into mortality, May caught me by grabbing my backpack strap. She didn't even look up from her book while doing it. "Morning, Lynn," she said calmly, flipping the page with one hand, holding my entire life with the other. I swear she wasn't a human girl. She was some mythical being sent to test me. I coughed and pretended this was all according to my 10-step plan for daily humiliation. Morning. I totally meant to gravity, stretches, warm-up exercise. May finally looked at me over the rim of her glasses. "Do you start every day with a near-death experience?" I puffed up my chest proudly. "Only on weekdays." She blinked. "Today is Tuesday." "Exactly," I said as if that explained everything. She closed her book gently, slid it into her bag and stood with that elegant grace I was starting to resent. "Come on," she said. I bought extra buns again. I was torn between gratitude and wanting to dissolve into the soil from embarrassment. "You really don't have to, but you'll skip breakfast again, won't you?" she said, giving me a look that could see straight into my soul. "No, Lynn. Probably." She handed me the bun without a word. Fine. He was right. And nothing tastes better than a bun given with mild judgment and hidden affection. We walked to class together again, which apparently raised some eyebrows. A few classmates whispered things like, "Why is May hanging around with the chaos gremlin?" And "Is Lynn bribing her with something?" The answer was no. I absolutely could not afford a bribe. I barely had enough money to buy pencil lead. But May didn't seem to care about the weird stares. In fact, as we walked, she glanced at me and said, "You should ignore them." I shrugged. "I do. I lost the ability to feel shame 2 incidents ago." May giggled again, soft, melodic, and unfairly cute. How dare she laugh like that in public where anyone could hear? My heart fluttered like a moth trapped in a lantern. "You're honest," she said. "I like that." And just like that, she dropped a nuclear bomb on my emotions. I like that. She liked that. I nearly choked on the bun. In class, she sat behind me. This meant I spent the entire lesson trying very hard not to think about her being exactly 1 arm's reach away. The teacher, meanwhile, was explaining quadratic equations with the enthusiasm of a soggy towel. My eyes started drooping. Just when I was about to drift off into the gentle dreamland of nap time, something lightly tapped my back. I turned my head and saw a small folded note sticking out from the corner of my desk. My heartbeat tripled. May had placed it there. Secret note. During class. This was extremely illegal and extremely exciting. I unfolded it with shaking fingers. Inside was written, "Try not to fall asleep. If you do, I'll poke your cheek." My soul combusted. I spun around to look at her, but she pretended to be taking notes with the most suspicious innocence I had ever seen. I wrote back, "You wouldn't dare." She slipped me another note 10 seconds later. "I would. And I will." Instantly, I sat up straight like a soldier preparing for inspection. Sleeping was no longer an option. Survival instinct activated. After class, May leaned closer to me, too close, and whispered, "You stayed awake." I swallowed. Fear is a powerful motivator. She smiled knowingly. "I'll keep that in mind." What did that mean? Why did she sound like she was planning something? Why was she so good at sounding sweet and dangerous at the same time? The rest of the day passed in similar fashion, May being calm and angelic, while I suffered multiple emotional and physical collapses. By the end of school, I dragged myself out the gate with the exhaustion level of a grandmother climbing a mountain. Suddenly I heard May call, "Lynn." I turned around and she stepped beside me with that same serene expression that made everything inside me swirl. "Are you free after school tomorrow?" she asked. I blinked. "Tomorrow? I think Unless I accidentally sign up for something without knowing? That happened once. May laughed softly. I want to show you something. Meet me by the ginkgo tree after class. She didn't wait for my answer. She just waved lightly and walked away as if she hadn't just altered the course of my entire fate. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, clutching my bag. Something she wanted to show me. Something. My brain ran wild with possibilities. Was she going to confess something? Was she going to give me more buns? Was she going to tell me she was actually a celestial being and I was her chosen protagonist? Either way, I knew I absolutely wasn't ready. The next day felt like someone had dumped a family-sized bucket of butterflies into my stomach. I kept glancing at the clock during class, tapping my pencil against my notebook until the girl next to me looked like she wanted to file a noise complaint. Even the teacher paused once and asked, "Lynn, are you in distress?" I nodded solemnly. "Sir." Emotionally. He decided not to ask further. When the final bell rang, I shot out of my seat with the urgency of a cat hearing a can of tuna open. I half ran, half skidded to the ginkgo tree, trying to look composed but mostly looking like I was being chased by ghosts. May was already there, sitting with her hands folded on her lap, looking as serene as a lake at dawn. How was she always like this? Meanwhile, I was one misstep away from spontaneous combustion. "You're early," she said with a small smile. I speed walked," I lied. I absolutely sprinted. There was dust behind me. May stood and, without any hesitation, reached out to gently straighten the collar of my uniform. "You rushed," she said. "Your collar's all crooked." I froze like a statue whose soul had been unplugged. Her fingers were warm. Her face was close. My brain was screaming at 7 different frequencies. When she was done, she let her hand linger for half a second too long. "There. Better." I made a small squeaking sound that might have come from either my mouth or the deepest, most flustered part of my soul. "So, what did you want to show me?" May glanced toward the main building. "Follow me." She walked ahead, graceful and calm. I followed behind her like a loyal puppy with absolutely no dignity. We slipped through the quiet hallways until May stopped at a door I had never paid much attention to, the old music room. It wasn't even used anymore. Most people thought it was haunted. Or cursed. Or both. May pushed open the door and I prepared for spirits, curses and maybe spontaneous violin playing. But instead the room was warm, softly lit by the late afternoon sun. Dust motes floated like tiny glowing spirits, and in the center of the room was a polished piano. "I come here sometimes," May said, walking over to it. "It's quiet. No one bothers me. Except me," I said before my brain could stop me. May looked at me, eyes soft. "You're not bothering me." My heart short-circuited. She sat at the piano bench and motioned for me to sit beside her. I hesitated because sitting next to May was emotionally dangerous, but I obeyed anyway. The bench was small, so our shoulders brushed. I silently prayed for the strength to survive. "Do you play?" she asked. "I can hit a few keys randomly and call it modern art," I admitted. She laughed, a light, sweet sound that made something in my chest melt. "Let me play something for you." She placed her fingers on the keys, and the music that followed was so gentle and warm that I felt myself sinking into it. It wasn't a grand, complicated piece. It was simple, soft like a lullaby, warm like a morning sunbeam. Felt like her. I didn't realize I had been staring until May stopped playing and turned toward me. "You're staring," she whispered. Yes. No. Your hands. They look like they were made for this. Like, piano hands." That was the best compliment my brain could produce. I wanted to jump out the window. She tilted her head, studying me with a quiet amusement that made her eyes glow. "You're cute when you panic." I choked on my own existence. Why would you say that? Why would you say dangerous things like that out loud? She didn't answer the question. Instead, she reached into the piano bench and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. "I wrote this yesterday," she said softly. "I wasn't sure whether to give it to you, but I think I should." My blood pressure skyrocketed. She handed it to me, her fingers brushing mine. I unfolded it slowly, terrified. My heart was beating so loudly it might have been echoing off the walls. Inside was a short, simple sentence. "You make my days more fun." I blinked. I read it again. Then a third time because my brain refused to process the information. Me? Fun. I'm a walking disaster. I sputtered. I'm like a meteor but with worse aim. You make me laugh, May said quietly. No one else really does. I felt my ears turning bright red. My entire face probably looked like a cooked shrimp. May, why me? She shrugged gently. I like being around you. You feel real. Warm. Warm. She said warm. I was 2 seconds away from ascending to a spiritual realm. Before I could find words, she added in a softer voice, and there's something else. Something I want to tell you later. But not yet. She looked down at her hands. I'm not ready. I nodded slowly. That's okay. I meant it. Even though my imagination was already running wild. May stood, smoothing her skirt. Let's go home together. And so we walked side by side down the sunlit hallway, the music room door closing behind us like a secret softly settling into the past. I didn't know what she was hiding. I didn't know why she had chosen me. But I knew, positively knew, that something inside her was reaching toward me. And I was already reaching back. The next few days were a strange mixture of bliss and panic. May stayed close to me, closer than ever. She waited for me in the mornings, sat with me during breaks, and always had an extra bun ready like she was my personally assigned breakfast guardian spirit. Every time she smiled at me, I felt like someone had cracked open my chest and poured sunshine inside. Unfortunately, sunshine made me stupid. I dropped my pen twice an hour. I tripped on my own shadow. I once walked into a doorframe so hard I left a forehead dent. May witnessed all of these moments with a gentle, amused expression, as if my chaos was her daily entertainment. But underneath the sweetness, something about her felt different. Softer. More hesitant. Whenever she thought I wasn't looking, she would glance at me with this kind of quiet longing. Then, the moment I turned toward her, she'd look away and pretend she was studying the ceiling as if it had ancient secrets written on it. I wanted to ask what was on her mind, but every time I tried, my courage failed and my tongue tied itself into decorative knots. On Friday afternoon, just as I was stuffing my books into my bag in a way that definitely wasn't structurally sound, May approached me. Lynn, she said, her voice soft and steady in a way that made my stomach flip. Can we go to the music room again? My heart thudded. The last time we were there, she gave me that note, the one I still kept folded neatly in my pocket like a priceless artifact. Of course, I said, trying to sound calm and not like a squirrel about to be handed a winning lottery ticket. The hallways were empty as we walked, our footsteps echoing softly. May didn't say a word, and somehow that made the air feel heavier, like the school was holding its breath. When she opened the music room door, the warm afternoon light spilled across the floor in golden streaks. Dust drifted lazily in the beams, and the piano sat waiting in the center like a secret that had been patient for years. May closed the door behind us and stood still for a long moment. Lynn, she began. There's something I've been thinking about. Something I should have said a long time ago. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Okay, I whispered. She walked to the piano bench but didn't sit. Instead, she placed her fingertips lightly on the polished surface, eyes lowered. I'm not good at talking about feelings. I'm afraid of saying something wrong. Or too much. That's okay, I said softly. I'm bad at everything, so we balance out. May let out a tiny breathy laugh. A fragile, nervous one. I had never heard her laugh like that before. She turned toward me. When I'm with you, everything feels brighter. Lighter. You make me laugh even when I'm trying to stay serious. And you make me feel, she paused, searching for the word. Warm. Safe. My breath caught. May, I said, stepping closer. She didn't move away. But the truth is, her hands trembled slightly. I've been scared. Scared you'd think I'm strange. Scared you wouldn't want me near you if you knew. Knew what? I whispered. She finally looked up, her dark eyes shining with something vulnerable enough to break me. That I like you. More than just friends. More than I planned to. The world tilted. My brain completely shut down. I forgot how lungs worked. Somewhere in the distance, a bird chirped, unaware that my entire life had just melted into a puddle at my feet. I opened my mouth to speak, but all that came out was a high-pitched noise resembling a teapot reaching boiling point. May's face fell slightly. I knew it, she murmured. I shouldn't have said. Wait. I squeaked so loudly the windows might have vibrated. I like you too. Her eyes widened. You do. Yes. I mean, obviously. Do you think I just randomly burst into flames every time you touch me? That's not normal. That's you. You're terrifying. And beautiful. And I like you so much I can't even walk straight. May stared at me. Then unexpectedly she laughed. Really laughed. Bright, uncontrollable, beautiful. Lynn, she said, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. Only you would confess like that. I covered my face with both hands. Please let the ground swallow me. She gently tugged my hands away from my face. No, she said softly. I want to see you. Her fingers intertwined with mine. Warm. Delicate. She stepped closer. Too close, so close I could feel her breath. Can I? She whispered, leaving the question hanging between us like a fragile ribbon. I nodded, my whole body trembling like a leaf in a storm. May leaned in slowly, giving me a chance to pull away. I didn't. I moved toward her without even thinking. Our lips met softly, so gently it felt like a sigh more than a kiss. Warm. Sweet. Perfect. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine, both of us breathing quietly in the golden afternoon light. I'm really glad you fell into my lap that day, she whispered. I'm glad your thighs were there to catch me, I replied before thinking. She burst into laughter again, and I decided I wanted to spend the rest of my life making her laugh like that. We sat at the piano afterward, our shoulders pressed together, playing random notes that made no sense but sounded perfect anyway. At some point, May intertwined our fingers again and didn't let go. I didn't want her to. Ever. As the sun dipped lower and the music room grew dim, I realized something simple and terrifying and wonderful. I had stumbled, quite literally, into something big. Something soft. Something warm. Something called love. And for once in my life I wasn't scared at all.